All right, if you're getting ready to graduate, I bet you're hearing one question on repeat. So, what's next? And look, if you're like pretty much everyone else, you probably don't have a perfect answer. I mean, how could you? The world is changing so incredibly fast. But what if you didn't have to just guess? What if you could actually design your future? Let's get into it.
And if you're feeling that mix of excitement and, let's be honest, pure terror, you are so not alone. It's completely normal to feel buried by all the options and the insane pressure to get it right the first time. That feeling of uncertainty, that's exactly where we're starting. So this is where things get really interesting, right? You see this huge disconnect. The advice our parents got, find that one passion, get a safe job for life, just climb the corporate ladder. That advice was for a world that honestly just isn't here anymore. Fast forward to today, and it's a completely different game. It's all about designing a path that actually fits you, being ready to adapt, and building a career that's totally unique. That old map? Yeah, it's pretty much useless now.
So, the big question is, why is it so much harder today? Let's actually break down the specific challenges that make navigating this whole career maze so uniquely confusing for your generation.
Okay, first up, there's this thing called choice paralysis. You'd think more options would be a good thing, right? But what psychologists have found is that when you're faced with hundreds of possible careers and you're seeing everyone's perfect-looking life on social media, it doesn't lead to freedom. It actually leads to anxiety and this intense fear of making the wrong move. So what happens? You end up making no choice at all.
And then, layered on top of that, is this very real, very modern fear: AI anxiety. I mean, you're about to pour years of your life and a ton of money into a degree, but there's this nagging voice in your head asking, will this job even be a thing in 10 years? And look, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It's a totally legitimate question about whether your skills will still be relevant.
So here's the bottom line. You just can't use an old instruction manual to build a new piece of tech. The advice to just follow your passion or find a stable job is officially broken because that stable, predictable world it was made for, well, it's gone. We absolutely need a new game plan.
And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. This is all about a huge shift in your mindset. We're going to stop passively searching for a career and start actively designing one. I want you to start thinking of yourself less like a job seeker and more like a career architect.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Drifting is what happens when you just let things happen to you. You're just pulled along by expectations or whatever comes your way. Designing, on the other hand, is proactive. It's about intentionally engineering a life that's built on a real understanding of who you are. Let's think about it like this. The passion search is like being on a raft in the middle of the ocean, just kind of hoping the current takes you somewhere cool. But the design project, that's you as the architect with a detailed blueprint, making deliberate choices about where you're going. One path almost always leads to confusion, while the other leads to clarity. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? How do you go from idea to action? Let's get into the practical how-to stuff for finding your personal blueprint. And it really all starts with the questions you're asking yourself. The problem is, most of us are asking questions that are way too shallow to give us any real answers. We've got to go deeper. Okay, and this right here is probably the biggest mindset shift in this entire explainer. We're all taught to ask ourselves, what do I like? But let's be real, our likes can change from week to week. A much, much more powerful question is, where am I effective? See, effectiveness. That's the magic spot where what you're naturally interested in, what you're actually good at, and your core personality all come together. It's not just about what you enjoy, it's about where you can truly make an impact. A huge piece of this puzzle is your personality. Seriously, it's your psychological DNA. Ignoring it is like spending your whole life climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. A really powerful way to understand this is through something called Jungian Archetypes. These are basically universal patterns that help us figure out our core motivations. For instance, let's say you're a creator archetype. You are wired to express yourself and build new things. The idea of a job where you're just maintaining the status quo, that would feel like a total nightmare to you. Or maybe you're the explorer. You thrive on freedom, new experiences, and being your own boss. A rigid 9-to-5 cubicle job would just crush your spirit. You need a path that's all about discovery and independence. And then you've got the ruler. This person is all about leadership, taking charge, and bringing order to chaos. They're energized by responsibility and building something stable. For them, a lack of structure feels like a total mess, not freedom. You see how different these internal engines are? So you've done some of that internal work. You've got a guess, a hypothesis about who you are and where you might be effective. Now what? Well, you have to get out of your head and into the real world. It's time to beta test your own future. And this is so important. You can spend years thinking and journaling and planning, but you will never, ever find real clarity that way. True, useful insight only comes from actually doing things. Action is what creates clarity, not the other way around. So here's a super simple scientific way to do it. First, you form a hypothesis based on what you've learned about yourself. Something like, okay, I think my creator archetype means I'd be good in a design role. Then you run a small, low-stakes test, a weekend project, a short internship, anything. And finally, you analyze the data. But don't just ask if you liked it. Ask the better questions. Did this give me energy? What parts felt effortless? And what parts felt like a total grind? This is the key mindset to have, especially in your early 20s. Your first few gigs aren't a life sentence. They're just data points. You're testing reality. You're gathering info so you can make smarter moves later on. It's not a marriage proposal. It's a first date. Okay, so we've got the design mindset, we've got the self-analysis tools, and we've got a way to test things in the real world. But just knowing these things isn't enough. How do you actually pull it all together into a system that works for you? Well, random thinking just doesn't cut it. To really make progress, it helps to have a modern, structured system. For example, there's a methodology out there called Talent Quest that's all about systematically connecting your personality, your interests, and your strengths into a clear direction. The name of the system doesn't really matter. It's the structured approach that's key. A really good system is going to be built on action, not just ideas. It'll give you real, practical exercises to do, maybe even 30 of them, that are designed to pull these insights out of you, instead of you just sitting around waiting for some big epiphany to strike. You know, it can also be a game changer to have a sort of technical manual for yourself, like a workbook where you actually architect your career path on paper. This thing becomes the literal blueprint for your design project, a document you can keep coming back to and refining over time. So let's circle all the way back to that feeling of being overwhelmed. The world is going to keep changing. That's a guarantee. The confusion isn't just going to magically disappear. But the thing is, you don't have to be a victim of that chaos. You now have a completely different way to approach this. You have the tools to be the architect of your own future. So the only real question left is, are you ready to stop guessing and start designing?